For months on end, astronomers and space researchers assured the world that the Atlas Comet Trio was nothing more than a breathtaking cosmic visitor, a spectacular but harmless traveler from the far reaches of another star system. It was predicted to pass safely near Mars, leaving behind a streak of brilliance before vanishing into the dark expanse of space forever. Yet, as the universe often reminds us, space rarely follows the scripts we write for it, and this story has begun to unfold in a far stranger way than anyone anticipated. New data from the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity's most advanced eye in the cosmos, has turned the entire narrative on its head. Numbers that once described a peaceful flyby now tell a story of deviation and uncertainty. The projected course has shifted subtly but significantly, and behind closed doors, scientists have started to whisper about an unsettling possibility they once dismissed outright. The three bodies known collectively as Atlas may not be passing by Mars at all. They may be on a collision course with it, but the mystery doesn't stop with their trajectory. What's unfolding seems to go beyond the behavior of a simple comet. The movements are precise, the releases of gas measured and rhythmic, and the object itself behaves less like a natural chunk of rock and ice, and more like a vessel under intelligent control. The deeper the data is analyzed, the clearer it becomes that something extraordinary is happening. Atlas is not drifting aimlessly through space as most comets do. Instead, it appears to be actively navigating, adjusting its path, correcting its orientation, and steadily honing in on a target, and that target, with increasing certainty, appears to be Mars. Whatever this enigmatic entity is, it remains operational within our solar system, defying conventional explanations and inviting deeper scrutiny into its true nature and purpose. The saga began innocently enough when 3 Atlas was first spotted on July 1st. At the time, it appeared to be just another icy wanderer, a faint blur of light racing across the darkness, shrouded in a glowing halo of dust and gas. Yet even in those early observations, something about it was remarkable. It wasn't just moving fast, it was moving faster than anything of its kind ever recorded, hurtling through space at an astonishing 87 kilometers per second relative to the sun. It was capable of bridging the vast distance between Earth and the Moon in under an hour and a half. But speed, as impressive as it wasn't what most baffled scientists. The real surprise lay in its behavior. Ordinarily, as comets plunge inward toward the heart of the solar system, they slow down, fragment under gravitational stress, or settle into predictable paths. Atlas did none of these things. Instead, it maintained its blistering velocity with unwavering precision, even accelerating at moments when physics suggested it should decelerate. The gas jets it released were not chaotic or random, as is typical for cometary activity. They were timed, directional, and almost deliberate. Each burst seemed to nudge the object's trajectory with a subtle push, altering its course in a way that suggested control rather than chance. Now, with every new transmission from James Webb and every refined calculation from observatories on Earth, the picture grows more unsettling. Atlas, once thought to be a harmless celestial spectacle, is revealing itself as something far more complex and possibly far more consequential. It is moving with intent, and its destination may hold answers to questions humanity has never before had to ask. At first, 3 Atlas behaved in ways scientists could still explain, but soon subtle changes began to unsettle even the most experienced observers. Its velocity, once steady, began to increase. Not dramatically, but with a slow, deliberate consistency that didn't match the natural behavior of any known comet. Even more curious was the shift in its trajectory. The once predictable path it traced across the void started to bend ever so slightly, as if it were steering itself toward some unseen destination. At the same time, the bright halo of gas and dust that surrounded it, the signature glow of a typical comet, suddenly doubled in intensity over just a few weeks, far faster than any natural outgassing event could explain. Spectral readings revealed something even more unusual: immense spikes of ultraviolet radiation and a torrent of carbon dioxide erupting from its surface at rates unlike anything astronomers had ever documented. It was no longer behaving like a chunk of frozen debris tumbling through the solar system. Instead, it was starting to resemble something engineered, more like a rocket adjusting its thrust than a comet merely reacting to sunlight. And then came the discovery that changed everything. The James Webb Space Telescope detected a pattern hidden within the tail's emissions. Instead of the chaotic, unpredictable bursts caused by ice sublimating under solar heat, there were rhythmic pulses, precise, consistent, and happening every 17 minutes. This was no coincidence. It was a repeated cycle, a deliberate mechanism. It was, in every meaningful way, a signal. signal, and the kind of controlled propulsion pattern one would expect from an object under intentional guidance rather than random cosmic forces. As teams from Webb, Gemini South, and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory continued to track it, the numbers began painting an increasingly alarming picture. What had once been classified as a harmless flyby was rapidly transforming into a potentially catastrophic scenario. Revised calculations placed the object's closest approach at a mere 1.95 million kilometers from Mars, a distance that, on a cosmic scale, is perilously close. Even more concerning was the result of new simulations. If 3 Atlas were to increase its speed by only 10 kilometers per second, a fraction of the acceleration already being observed from its gas emissions, and its trajectory would intersect directly with Mars's surface. It wouldn't need a dramatic shift to change everything. Just a small, deliberate nudge could turn the red planet into a target. Natural objects don't behave this way. They don't adjust their velocity with precision, and they certainly don't use their own expelled material as a means of steering. Yet that's exactly what 3 Atlas seemed to be doing. It was as though the comet were equipped with miniature engines, using bursts of gas as controlled thrust to guide itself, a level of maneuverability never before witnessed in a naturally occurring body. What made the situation even more troubling was that each of these measured pulses aligned almost perfectly with Mars's orbital path around the sun. The object wasn't just moving, it was actively aiming, and as the data grew more precise, so too did the timeline. Scientists began narrowing down the critical window for a possible collision, warning that any significant burst occurring between September 19th and September 30th could be the final push that sealed Mars's fate. At this point, the unease spread beyond niche astronomy forums or the realm of speculative fiction. Concern was no longer limited to hobbyists with backyard telescopes or dreamers imagining alien visitors. Professional astrophysicists, planetary scientists, and mission planners were now paying close attention. The patterns were too deliberate, the behavior too calculated, and the risk too real to dismiss. What began as a simple celestial spectacle was rapidly evolving into one of the most mysterious and potentially consequential events humanity has ever witnessed in its exploration of the cosmos. The idea that 3I Atlas might not be a natural object at all, but a machine designed for deep space exploration is becoming harder to ignore. Several pieces of evidence point toward this possibility. Radar scans from both the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and the Goldstone deep space antennas detected strong metallic reflections, unlike the faint, water-rich signatures typical of ordinary comets. Scientists within NASA described the readings as highly unusual, unlike anything they had ever encountered before. Adding to the mystery, long exposure photographs taken by amateur astronomers revealed thin, green, needle-like streaks in the sky. 3 concentrated beams of light appeared to move together toward Mars, pulsing in perfect sync with the regular bursts from the object's exhaust points, suggesting that something far more complex was happening than natural outgassing. Dr. Lowe and other experts now suspect that 3I Atlas may be deliberately steering toward Mars, possibly to collide with it, or even more unsettling, to deliver something there. Whether that means deploying probes, sending signals, scattering biological material, or something completely unexpected, one thing is clear: its approach is intentional. Mars is being targeted with remarkable precision, and we are witnessing an event that defies easy explanation. The consequences of a collision would be almost unimaginable. With a mass of around 10 billion tons and a relative velocity of 57 kilometers per second, an impact would unleash over 2 million megatons of energy, far exceeding the destructive power of the most powerful nuclear weapon ever detonated. The resulting crater would span about 60 kilometers wide and plunge 5 kilometers deep, hurling debris across Mars's orbit and potentially flinging fragments into space, some of which could eventually intersect with Earth. But the threat goes beyond flying rocks and dust. Mars hosts numerous scientific missions, rovers exploring its surface, orbiters studying its atmosphere, and instruments searching for signs of past or present life. A catastrophic impact would destroy these missions, erase decades of research, sever communications networks, and possibly unleash unknown microbial contaminants. Space agencies around the world, including ESA, Roscosmos, CNSA, and JAXA, are now urgently discussing planetary protection measures. The concern isn't about alien invaders, but about a single mysterious object behaving far too much like a controlled spacecraft. For decades, scientists have tried to answer one of humanity's biggest questions. Did life ever exist on Mars? And could it still be hiding beneath its dusty red surface today? They've searched for underground lakes, microscopic life forms in dormancy, and traces of ancient habitats locked under layers of ice and rock. This quest has been the driving force behind countless missions to Mars. But if the 3i Atlas were to collide with the planet, everything we think we know about life there could be thrown into uncertainty. The immense heat and force of such an impact wouldn't just destroy the surface. It would crack open deeper layers of the crust, exposing regions of Mars we've never been able to reach. And if the object is carrying any kind of biological material, either natural or engineered, its collision could mix Earth-based life with potential Martian life, creating widespread genetic contamination. Some researchers have described this possibility as reverse panspermia, the deliberate seeding of life on another planet rather than the accidental spread from Mars to Earth. It leads to an unsettling thought. What if the goal of 3i Atlas isn't destruction at all? What if its purpose is to deliver life, to plant something new on Mars and allow it to grow there? As the object moved closer to its target, the James Webb Space Telescope conducted one final detailed observation. The results of those scans were initially kept secret for 2 days before only partial information was released. However, leaked internal reports painted a far more alarming picture. The instruments detected traces of synthetic materials, including manufactured plastics and carbon nanotubes, mixed in with the natural gases surrounding the object. These compounds don't form naturally in space, or as a byproduct of cometary heating. They are artificial. Even more puzzling, spectrographic analysis revealed unusual variations in elemental composition, especially in carbon and hydrogen, that don't resemble anything known within our solar system. In short, 3i Atlas contains materials that shouldn't exist out there, and all of it is heading toward a world that may still harbor life. This discovery was shared privately among major space agencies, and emergency response teams were assembled, not to intercept the object, but to analyze and understand it before time ran out. As the situation grew more concerning, NASA made an unexpected move. It stopped talking, public updates ceased, mission data streams from rovers like Perseverance and orbiters like Tianwen-1 contained noticeable gaps, and official channels fell silent. Questions about a possible collision were suddenly avoided, and the tone around the entire situation shifted. Then, a leaked internal communication revealed a chilling phrase: impact protocol initiated. No one outside a small group knows exactly what that means, but insiders claim that encoded transmissions were quietly sent from Earth-based stations to every active probe, rover, and satellite currently operating on Mars. This is puzzling because, as far as anyone knows, there's no practical way to intercept or capture 3 Atlas. The only logical explanation is that the signals weren't intended to stop it at all. They were meant to prepare Mars for what's coming, and if 3 Atlas is an autonomous or semi-intelligent system, it might be capable of detecting energy patterns, reading transmissions, or even interpreting coded instructions. If that's the case, humanity may have revealed more than intended. By sending those signals, we might have shown that we're aware, and worse, that we're responding. If something intelligent is controlling this object, it now knows we know. Researchers at the SETI Institute decided to explore the mystery from a different angle. They converted all the known data about 3 Atlas, including its orbital path, speed, closest approach time, and gravitational interactions, into binary code similar to how messages are encoded for deep space communication. After compressing the information using standard techniques, what emerged wasn't random noise. It contained repeated structures and patterns. Within the data, they identified numerical sequences corresponding to atomic numbers: 6, 8, 14, and 26, the identifiers for carbon, oxygen, silicon, and iron, the essential elements of both biology and technology. Even more intriguingly, there were sequences of descending prime numbers and repeated gaps that resembled deliberate message formatting. This led to a striking hypothesis. The path and motion of 3 Atlas itself could be a message, not sent through radio waves, but encoded in its trajectory, timing, and presence. This suggests we're not merely observing an object traveling toward Mars. We might be witnessing a message unfolding in real time. The outcome itself could carry meaning. If 3 Atlas impacts the planet, that would signal one thing. If it narrowly misses, that would signal something entirely different. In either case, the message is already in motion, and its interpretation depends on how the event plays out. As scientists refined their calculations and narrowed the object's trajectory, they noticed an unsettling coincidence. The updated path of 3 Atlas passed directly directly over a narrow region above Elysium Planitia, a geologically young plain on Mars marked by unusually regular surface patterns. Satellite imagery revealed circular shapes, spirals, and formations eerily reminiscent of Fibonacci sequences. These features had been known for some time, but now they took on a new significance. The revised trajectory aligned almost perfectly with a shallow depression on the surface. This depression was a bowl-like structure less than 3.5 kilometers across. It didn't resemble an impact crater or a volcanic vent, yet at its center lay a patch of highly reflective silicates, shimmering in ways never before documented on Mars. When sunlight struck these materials, they emitted short, rhythmic bursts of infrared light. For years, the phenomenon was dismissed as a geological curiosity, but in light of 3 Atlas's precise course, scientists began to wonder if this formation was more than coincidence, perhaps even a signal, a marker, or a rendezvous point. And if it was a signal, the unsettling question followed: who created it? As the James Webb Space Telescope shifted its view and captured new observations of 3 Atlas from a different angle, it detected something unexpected. Trailing behind the main object, and yet not physically attached to it, was a strange, dark presence. It maintained a steady distance of about 0.07 astronomical units, and it wasn't space debris or a cloud of gas. This was something denser and far more mysterious. Radar couldn't detect it, and infrared scans failed to register any heat, but optical observations revealed a noticeable dip in light, moving in perfect sync with 3I Atlas, as though it were tethered to it by some invisible force. The shadow remained locked at the same distance, unaffected by changes in speed or gravitational pull. When plotted along the comet's trajectory, its motion formed a flawless circle, mirroring every turn and adjustment. It wasn't pushing, steering, or interfering, just following precisely as if it were deliberately tracking the comet's movements. This behavior sparked intense speculation. Could it be a separate object, a probe, a repeating gravitational anomaly, or perhaps something stranger, an invisible field, a remnant of an ancient event, or even a set of encoded instructions following a predetermined pattern? For the first time, scientists began to consider the possibility that 3I Atlas itself might not be the primary phenomenon. It could be carrying, shielding, or signaling something even more elusive. As the expected impact date drew closer, researchers noticed another unsettling detail. When they charted the comet's closest approaches to the Sun, Earth, and Mars, the timings aligned with significant astronomical events, key points in orbital cycles that ancient civilizations had tracked for centuries. Dates like September 23rd, October 5th, and November 11th stood out, moments that not only mark seasonal transitions and planetary alignments, but also coincide with rare gravitational resonances that occur roughly every 54 years. The last time all 3 inner planets occupied similar positions during a comet's passage was in 1908, the year of the Tunguska explosion. This unexpected connection sent shockwaves through the scientific community. How could a celestial object align with such significant cosmic moments purely by coincidence? Perhaps it wasn't coincidence at all. Maybe its timing was intentional, a sign that it was following some kind of natural clock or schedule. This didn't look like random chance anymore. It looked like a recurring event, something that had been planned or programmed to happen again and again. In space, repetition often suggests purpose. And then one final discovery pushed the conversation into territory scientists usually avoided: the possibility of consciousness at work. A research group at Princeton studying brain activity during deep states of meditation observed something astonishing. When participants were exposed to recordings of 3 Atlas's pulsing light signals, particularly the 17-minute bursts of gas, their brain waves began to synchronize with the rhythm. This effect wasn't limited to one person or one experiment. It appeared consistently in multiple individuals, even when they were separated and unaware of each other's involvement. This wasn't just a coincidence. It was as if their minds were being influenced. It seemed the signal wasn't only physical, it had a mental or cognitive effect too. And if it could reach across such vast distances and interact with human consciousness, what did that say about its origin? Could 3 Atlas be something beyond a comet or a machine? Perhaps a form of thought traveling across the universe like a seed of awareness. A message not meant to be read or decoded, but felt. It activates when it's perceived and becomes part of the observer once received. If that's true, then whatever happens on Mars might only be a small part of a much larger story. one already unfolding within us. As concern about the possible impact continued to grow, a small group of experts in ancient astronomy began comparing the object's path with historical sky records. They turned to charts from civilizations like the Babylonians, the Mayans, and Tibetan scholars. What they found was almost unbelievable. A recurring symbol known as the flame serpent appeared across multiple ancient civilizations. It described an object from deep space that descends from afar, curves mysteriously as it nears the sun, and then sets a course for Mars. This same winding trajectory was carved into stones and even painted on cave walls, all depicting nearly identical paths. But one artifact stood out above the rest, an ancient calendar stone from Tiahuanaco that showed 4 distinct lines radiating outward from Mars after the object's arrival. When researchers analyzed it using modern methods, those lines aligned almost perfectly with the projected debris pattern scientists expect if 3I Atlas were to strike the planet. This discovery hinted at something extraordinary, that someone thousands of years ago may have known this event would occur. The implications are unsettling. It suggests that 3I Atlas isn't a random occurrence, but part of a recurring cycle. Mars might not be the final destination, but rather the starting point of something larger. Then, an even stranger development took place. The ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, which had been powered down to conserve energy, suddenly detected a surge of xenon isotopes in Mars's upper atmosphere. At first, scientists assumed the gas was solar in origin, but its composition didn't match. It wasn't falling from space. It was rising from deep beneath the surface. More precisely, it was emanating from fissures in the Cerberus Fossae region, one of Mars's most geologically active zones. Seismic activity there spiked, and subsurface temperatures climbed by 3 Kelvin. What came next stunned researchers even further. Instruments picked up a faint but structured magnetic signal repeating every 17 minutes, the same rhythm as the gas bursts from 3I Atlas. Suddenly, the question shifted. It wasn't about whether the comet would impact Mars anymore. It was whether Mars was already preparing for it. It was as if the planet wasn't being attacked but being activated, as if something buried deep within, dormant for thousands of years, had just begun to awaken. As time passed, the idea of an impact started to feel less like a physical collision and more like a moment of alignment, something meant to happen in time rather than in space. Online observers noticed that the light pulses from 3 Atlas weren't random and didn't match earlier predictions. Instead, they followed a precise repeating sequence. 7 flashes, a pause, 3 flashes, another pause, 13 flashes, and so on. These numbers weren't arbitrary. When charted visually, they formed a spiral pattern based on the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical structure often associated with growth, memory, and even the blueprint of DNA itself. Mathematicians and cryptographers collaborated to decode the meaning behind the pattern and arrived at a troubling conclusion. 3 Atlas wasn't measuring time in the usual sense, not in seconds or minutes, but in rhythmic cycles. The object wasn't just approaching, it was synchronizing. The countdown wasn't about the moment of impact, it was about a point when multiple forces, energy, orbital mechanics, and possibly even consciousness would align. If that countdown reached its end, the result might not be an explosion but a transformation, a fundamental shift in perception, or perhaps even in the nature of reality itself. Then, just 3 days before the expected impact, something unexpected occurred. A low, rumbling signal was detected, inaudible to humans but unmistakable in its structure, and it wasn't coming from space. The signal wasn't just bouncing off Mars, it was originating from beneath Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system. Long considered dormant, it had suddenly begun emitting a clear, repeating transmission. Independent satellites from Europe, China, and the United States all confirmed the signal's presence. Its pattern didn't match any known natural phenomenon. When scientists isolated the mysterious signal and plotted it on a graph, its shape shocked them. It formed a spiral identical to the pattern 3I Atlas emitted when it passed closest to the sun. This raised unsettling questions. What does it mean when a planet appears to respond before the object even arrives? Was Olympus Mons merely echoing a signal, or was it transmitting one of its own? Had Mars been waiting for this precise moment? And more importantly, if the planet is in some way waking up, what happens when it is fully awake? As the final hours approached, researchers uncovered something unusual, buried in decades-old data. A thermal scan from the Mars Odyssey orbiter, taken nearly 20 years earlier, revealed a small pocket of heat beneath Utopia Planitia. At the time, it had been dismissed as nothing more than reflected sunlight, but now, the hotspot had grown, and its shape was eerily familiar. It resembled an ancient symbol carved into the rock walls of the D&M mine, a spiral descending into a circle, with two planets seemingly aligned at the point of contact. The discovery hinted at a deeper mystery. Perhaps Mars is more than a barren world of dust and stone. Perhaps it holds a memory, a cosmic record of events written into its surface. And if that's the case, maybe 3i Atlas isn't just approaching Mars by chance. Maybe it's the key needed to unlock that record, a catalyst designed to play whatever has been stored there for millennia. Then something happened that no one thought possible. High-resolution images from the Mars Express orbiter revealed something unexpected moving across the dusty terrain south of Noctis Labyrinthus. It wasn't caused by wind, nor was it the work of any rover. Something beneath the surface appeared to be pushing upward, shaping the sand into a design. Over the course of 4 hours, two concentric circles slowly expanded as if being drawn from below, evolving until they formed a striking image. The final shape was an eye, tilted precisely 23.5 degrees, the exact axial tilt of Earth. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. Was it an eye observing us, or a reflection meant to reveal something about ourselves? Scientists searched for explanations but found none. Mars had blinked, not metaphorically, but literally and deliberately. It was as if this had been anticipated long before humans ever existed. Moments before communication signals were lost, the James Webb Space Telescope analyzed the chemical traces left in the wake of the 3 Atlas objects. Alongside expected organic compounds, researchers discovered something astonishing that electrified the astrobiology community, a repeating chain of genetic-like sequences resembling RNA. It wasn't identical to any known Earth-based RNA, but it was clearly structured to replicate itself. A primitive, alien form of genetic material drifting through space. As scientists examined it further, an even more unsettling thought emerged. This material wasn't just alive, it was responsive. Embedded within parts of the sequence were patterns resembling human-designed encryption codes. ChatGPT said, other segments of the sequence resembled musical notation, as though the molecule had been designed to connect with intelligence and respond based on how it was interpreted. This wasn't lifeless debris drifting through space. It was a living message, crafted to travel across the cosmos. Life here wasn't contained within cells, but encoded in communication itself. As the 3 Atlas objects entered their final trajectory, the world's telescopes locked onto one last celestial event. Mars, Earth, and the Sun were about to align perfectly, with the trio crossing that line precisely as the sun moved behind them. Yet this was far more than a random alignment. When scientists plotted the configuration, they found it matched the orientation of ancient stone monuments on Earth. Sites like Stonehenge, Nabta Playa, Teotihuacan, and Wakan all pointed toward the same 3 points in the sky. For thousands of years, humans had unknowingly built monuments in preparation for this exact moment. Now, the alignment was happening again, not as myth, but as a real unfolding process. Mars, the silent watcher; Earth, the awakening observer; the Sun, the eternal source; and 3i Atlas. Not a comet, not a piece of rock, but a crucial element in a much larger memory shared across planets. The final position wasn't about destruction, it was about completion. And when that alignment occurred, something fundamental would change. For so long, we had looked to the heavens and seen only a comet, a stray fragment drifting from the far reaches of the galaxy. We gave it a name, we tracked its course, we believed it was coincidence. But the James Webb Telescope revealed a deeper truth. None of this was random, it was orchestrated. The object didn't just appear, it performed a role, aligned with purpose, and responded to something greater. And as it journeyed through the solar system, each planet it passed began to communicate. With signals, pulses, alignments, and patterns. Mars didn't simply react, it remembered, as if this had all happened before. Now, with one final maneuver, the 3 Atlas objects have taken their positions. Their purpose doesn't appear to be destruction, but completion, the fulfillment of a sequence, the end of a countdown, the convergence of everything that has been building toward this moment. Mars may be where it all comes together, but here on Earth, we are the ones watching, and maybe we were never meant to simply observe. Perhaps Perhaps we were always meant to participate. Every telescope we've built, every signal we've sent into the void, every idea once dismissed as impossible, it has all led to this. The most profound impact might not be something we can touch or measure. It might not leave a crater or scatter debris. Instead, it's already reshaping how we understand Mars, life itself, and our own place in the universe. In the end, 3 Atlas didn't originate from Mars. It came to make us look closer, and now that our attention is fixed on it, the real question begins: what happens next? Subscribe to keep following this story, because it isn't over. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. Share this with anyone who still believes humanity is alone. And tell us what you think below. Was 3 Atlas just a coincidence, or was it a message? Maybe in the end, Mars isn't the one about to be struck. Maybe we are, by a new understanding of reality itself.